Paul Bradley Coaching asks, what's the key ingredients to being a better man?
To be a better man, you need to know who the man is. So if you strip away the ostentation, if you strip away who you're not, you'll reveal who you are. They call this apophatic theology. It's the theology of negation. So it's saying if we don't know who we are, or if we don't know who God is, we strip away everything that we're not, or we strip away everything that God is not, until we reveal exactly who we are. And when we find who we are, that is our best man. That's how we become a better man. So that might sound complicated, but really for me it just meant looking at my life and going, okay, I'm angry, I'm violent, I'm jealous, I'm insecure. This was about being brutally honest. I was greedy, I was envious. That's not my best game. So when those emotions started to rise up, I wouldn't engage them or identify with them. So I started to reduce them from my life. And as I reduced all the things I wasn't, so I practiced on not being jealous, I practiced not being a gossip, I practiced not being violent. When I reduced all the things I wasn't, I automatically revealed who I was. That's how you find the best man, that's how you become a better person. If you wanted to reduce it even more for now, just be kind every day. Don't do anything that doesn't come from kindness. See how long that lasts, see how long you can do that for. In fact, just go a week without gossiping, go a week without judging, go a week without having opinions about people. And automatically you'll start becoming a better person. So if it doesn't come from kindness, don't do it.
Unique Awakening asks, how do I make myself start my journey? I think I found your work for a reason.
Well, you've got to. I've said this in one of the other answers. You have to identify who is it that's stopping you from starting the journey. So what we said before about food. It's not what you're eating; it's what you're feeding. So we've got to say it's not why am I not starting the journey? Who is it in you that's not allowing you to start the journey? The whole journey is about you winning your will back, winning your kingdom back. And when you go to win your kingdom back, all of those territories within you that have been taken over and inhabited by bad habits or concepts or precepts or false beliefs, they will fight to keep their squatters' rights within you. So when there's a resistance, the part of you that's resisting needs to be overcome. That's the battle. That's what they call the greater jihad, or the inner battle. So the part of you that won't get started is the part of you that you've got to overcome, and that's about you exercising the will. So part of you wants to do something, part of you doesn't. You need to place your will in the centre of that, and you exercise your will by doing the thing no matter how uncomfortable it is. If it's really uncomfortable, you just keep doing it. You just keep turning up. It's not comfortable. You say it's like going in the gym. If you want to build a physique, you've got your will, you've got your desire to build a physique, and you've got the resistance of the weights. You place yourself in between the two, and you look for the burn, and you stay in the burn long. That's how you develop a physique. So you do the same with everything you're doing. If you go to start a journey and this feeling rises up and you think, oh, I can't be bothered, I can't do this, look at the part of you that says I can't do it. Look at the part of you that can't be bothered. That is the part of you that needs to be consumed in the act of doing it.
Aaron asks, you have studied a great amount of work in philosophy across many different cultures. I have found the Mahabharata to be a fantastic teacher, yet I'm not sure I would want to be a Christian or devotee. Have you ever found yourself in a similar position, and what did you take away from the lesson? Thanks in advance, and deep gratitude for the learning you have shared. It's been a huge help to me.
Oh, thank you. That's a really nice message and a good question. When I was in the martial arts, I had a core system, which was Shotokan, and then I would go off and do judo, I'd go off and do Thai, I'd go off and do all the different forms of wrestling, collegiate, catching, catch, can, and Greco-Roman and freestyle and all the rest of it. I'd go off and do all these different systems, and then I would bring them back to the hub. So I was in the end I was no longer a Shotokan guy, but I wasn't a judo player either, and I wasn't a Thai boxer. But I'd got all of those elements, all of those different elements that created a unique art that nobody could really mimic because it was bespoke. So I followed my intuition. My intuition would say, you've got a strong long-range system, but you need some groundwork. So I'd go and do some groundwork. You need some tatiwaza, so I'd go and do some standing throwing. Your close-range punching isn't strong, so I'd go and do that. Every time I went into those different systems, I would get good at those systems because I was doing it full time. And of course, the people in those systems wanted me to stay in those systems and teach those systems and become an advocate for those systems. But I knew that wasn't my dharma. My dharma was to collect all of these different attributes until I'd got a complete whole. I felt exactly the same when I went into the different faiths and religions. I studied the Mahabharata too, and the Gita, and the Bhagavatam, and the Yogish Vashishta, and all the different Hindu stuff, and I loved it. And like you, I didn't, when I was training, I was being taught in Hindu canon. They wanted me to, to be an advocate, and they wanted me to teach it. And I remember saying to my guru in Hinduism, listen, I love this. I love Krishna and I love Arjuna and I love these stories, but I don't feel like I want to go out and teach a specific denomination. And he said to me, you don't need to, Geoff. He said, you already are. He said, when you go and do it in any other name, you're still doing it. You're still teaching it. And I love that. I love that he was saying it doesn't really matter. Like Mother Teresa, when she's teaching to the poor in Calcutta, she's saying, look, I'm going to do our Lord's Prayer. But when I get to the word Jesus, or Christ, or God, if you don't like that word, replace it with any word you want. They realise that it doesn't. You get to a certain level where the words don't mean anything. It's just about the intention and about the love. So in all the different systems, I was in love with Hinduism. I love Judaism. Islam, again, it's a beautiful art. I loved Muhammad. I read his biography several different times from different places and read the Quran, and I love following Al-Ghazali and lots of the great imams. And of course Christianity, which I was brought up on. I love all of them. But when I connect with God in the very centre, it doesn't have a name and it doesn't have a denomination. So at the lower level, you've got all of these different denominations and there's all of this politicking. At the top level, you wouldn't know the difference between a Christ and a Buddha and a Krishna and an Allah. You wouldn't know the difference. It's all the same energy. So I would say I have had that issue, and I have felt a seduction. When I was in Hinduism, I just absolutely loved it. I was quoting it with all the stuff I was doing, and I even got the Srimad Bhagavatam and read the whole lot. I really studied it and then went off and read the exegesis of those books. But I didn't feel that I wanted to dedicate myself to a specific denomination and just teach that. But what I did find, that God was putting me in a position where, because of my study, I can talk to Hindus or I can talk to Sikhs, or I can talk to Buddhists, or I can talk to Christians, or I can talk to any of these different denominations and understand and get the message across, because I understand where they're coming from, I understand what they're doing. So for me, I feel God is encompassed just in the word love, just in the word love. But when you feel it, when you're in the centre of it, it doesn't have any name, it doesn't have any denomination. There's no good or bad with it. There's none of that. There is just love. The poet Rumi said, there is a field beyond good and bad. He was saying there's a field beyond denomination. He said, I'll meet you there. This is where friends meet. So I like that idea that there's a place beyond denomination. There's a place beyond name. There's a place beyond, dogma, where you just feel love. And then there's no difference between any of the sects, none at all. All the ones I've studied have all been very beautiful. I'm doing a lot of study at the moment into Judaism, the Kabbalah and the Zohar. And I've got to tell you, it is so fascinating. Some of the stuff, it's way beyond, any of the stuff you would expect. If you talk about Judaism or if you talk about the Jewish sect, when you start going into the Kabbalah and then beyond the Kabbalah into the Zohar, you no longer even understand what you're reading. Your brain or your soul takes it in like a barcode. And what you get from it is absolutely fascinating. And I could quote it to you, and you could say to me, where did that come from? Where can I access that? I couldn't give you a bibliography because it's a bit here, a bit there, another bit there in 3 months' time. 2 years' time, I get a bit there. I put them into my notes. I put them all together. I reduce my notes, and I come up with a concept that is powerful as an acorn seed, with the ability to create millions and millions of itself. But I couldn't tell you where it comes from because it came from 20 disparate places and none of it connected until I brought them together and reduced them. So there is a level beyond just the normal reading of a Bible, what we call the revealed Bibles, and understanding what it says. There's a place where you don't understand it on a conscious level, and that shatters the ego, but on a soul level it's read like a barcode, and then it's a huge direction, very powerful.
Graham Jack asks, who has been your biggest inspiration in the last 5 years?
Thanks for the question, Graham. I wouldn't say it was a person, but I've had a 5 year sabbatical. And during that period, I've kind of gone through a process of kenosis, of self-emptying. And after I'd finished this emptying, I was empty. I was on my knees. I was like as raw as I could be. I was in a massively vulnerable state. And at that time, I was gifted. 3 years before that, I was gifted a set of books called the Zohar, which is the exegesis of the Torah, or the exegesis of Kabbalah. So it's the explanation of Kabbalah, and Kabbalah is the exegesis of the Torah or the Old Testament. And when I'd finished this kenosis, this self-emptying, I realised I intuited that I needed to read these books, and there was 26 volumes. So I read full time for the next 6 months, and I made 70 pages of notes, which I then reduced down. So I'd say my biggest influence has been, over the last 5 years, has been Judaism, or specifically the Zohar, and specifically because it led me, when I was completely emptied, it refilled me again. Even though egoically I didn't understand what I was reading, most of it, I didn't really understand it. The very beginning of the book, at the first book, it says you won't understand this. It's esoteric. The mind will read it like a barcode. You just need to subjugate the ego and just allow the information to go in and make the notes when you feel them. So I had to read the English and the non-English version of it all the way through, and then ended up with 70 pages of notes, which I reduced to about 30 pages, and then I reduced that to about 7 or 10. Then I eventually reduced it down to a single concept. So this 6 months of reading over this massive amount of material just left me with a single concept, and that single concept then was like a seed that I had to unpack, like an acorn. Like I had to unpack it, recognising within that one seed there was the potential for another million seeds, and within those million seeds, potential again for another million from each of them. So the biggest influence over the last 5 years has been Judaism, and I'm talking about going beyond the revealed books. I'm talking about going to the hidden books. I'm not talking about the revealed teaching where they say the world was built in 7 days and all the rest of it, or that the world is 4,000 years old. I'm talking about going beyond the house ghosts and going into the deep exegesis of these books and finding a message specifically for me at that time. And it was powerful. And the books came to me 3 years before when I did a documentary about the ego with Guy Ritchie. He invited me to come on as a guest. And I was working with Guy Ritchie and a guy called Jim Warren. And Jim sent me this set of books as a gift. But when it arrived, I wasn't ready to read it. In fact, I couldn't even open the package. I was, the material in it was so rich. So when I was ready to read it 3 years later, it massively influenced me, and it's still influencing me today. The one concept it left me with, I'm still unpacking. I probably will still be unpacking it for the rest of my life, but it's transformative. And I won't explain what the concept was here because it needs a lot of explanation, but just enough to say that from 26 volumes, I found one word that became the seed that's opening up to a whole new world of possibilities.